Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Green Room podcast. I am Otto Keisker, and I will be your host for the night. Here with me tonight is my co-host and good buddy, Mark DiGiovanni. Mark, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Dude, I'm doing well, man. We'll say, man, I'm not used to this cold, bro. I was just out in Arizona last week. It was 80 degrees all week. Now it's 20 and I got snow on the ground. So got to make that adjustment, just like a quarterback in the pocket. You got to make those adjustments.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I envied you last weekend. I'm not gonna lie. It was pretty cold up here in Maine. So
You
I
guys got a
would
lot
have
of
loved
snow
to
up
have been
there?
out there.
How's
Yeah,
that
we
for
get
me?
a little bit. We get a little bit of snow. I'm looking forward to the days where I come down to the Jersey Shore this summer and visit you.
Oh, man,
But
I can't wait. Can't wait.
absolutely. So moving into it, last week we covered the Super Bowl, but this week we start to cover the NFL draft, and that's really what we want to focus on with this podcast series. We're going to try to do one podcast per week leading up to the draft, try to cover each one of the positions throughout the episodes, have a couple segments that we're going to keep in every episode, and then we're going to have some different segments every week. Try to keep it interesting and try to keep all of our listeners learning about some of the prospects in the draft, some of the a little bit more about the draft process in general and why it's so important for teams in the NFL. So to kind of kick that off, we are 71 days away from the first day of the NFL draft. And this year's NFL draft is out in Vegas. No better location for the draft. And if you are wondering, you can gamble on the draft. So very important note there. And where we are in the draft process currently, we've been through the season, which to me really is the first stage. We've now been through the All-Star games, which a lot of people pay attention to the Senior Bowl, but you also have the East-West Shrine game. And there is now another All-Star game being played for members of historically Black colleges that I believe goes on this weekend. I know they've been practicing throughout the week this week. So we're about through that second phase of All-Star games. And then the last two phases leading up to the draft really are the Combine, or the Underwear Olympics, as it's referred to, in early March, and then the Pro Days that really span throughout March. So that's kind of the entire process. We're really kind of midway through here, and we've already got some guys that have really caught our eyes here. I know Mark and I have went back and forth. Mark, anybody really off the bat that caught your eye at the Senior Bowl?
Yeah, I'm going to say Jermaine Johnson out of Florida State. I mean, he's been an absolute beast off the edge, and a lot of people have been buzzing about him. So he's definitely someone I have my eye on. Kind of reminds me of like one of our Eagles players, Josh Sweat, because kind of that big physical body, but has that quickness to just get right off the line. So I really like him. I think he made a huge impact this week or last week.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with that comp as well. Got some length like Sweat, uses it pretty well, bends well around the edge. And one thing that I really liked about Johnson was he's got a full repertoire of moves. He can beat you with a bull rush. He can beat you with a spin move. And he can line up on either side. And that versatility in today's NFL is just so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, like you said, too, his speed is just so crucial. And he's got a great burst off the line as well.
He absolutely does. So jumping into our first topic here, we're going to kind of stick with the theme of giving you an overview of the draft for this year, at least with where we stand right now. So first, we want to discuss what we each believe are the top three positions in the 2022 NFL draft. So Mark, what do you got for the top positions in the draft?
I think for me, the top positions, I know a lot of people have edge rushers at the top, which obviously, you need edge rushers. But for me, it's offensive tackles. I mean, we have a couple big name tackles that are projected to be 1 through 5. So I think that's number one. I mean, you see Cincinnati, you absolutely need an offensive line to protect your quarterback. So I think that's first and foremost the most important position this year. Then number two, I do have the edge rushers. Obviously, Hutchinson, Thibodeau, they're the two big names from the edge rushers. And then number three for me, I'm going to go with linebacker. Obviously as Eagles fans, we see how they just always pass over linebackers, but you look at the best defenses in this league, and they're always built with that linebacker. Just look at the Rams. They brought in Von Miller, huge acquisition for them. But then you look at a team like Seattle, who's always had a pretty stout defense because of that man in the middle, Bobby Wagner. So I think, there's some guys in this draft at linebacker who I really like, and I think those guys can make an immediate impact. Just look at a guy like Patrick Queen for Baltimore, first round pick a few years ago in 2020, has been one of the best linebackers in the league.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you there. My list is similar. I have two of the same positions and then a different one. So I'll go 3-1 here. My third strongest position is the receiver position. When I look at this year's draft, much like last year, outside of the talent that was at the top last year, this is similar to last year's class in the depth of talent that it has. You could potentially see 4 guys go in the first round at receiver this year, and then another 4 or 5 in the second round, and a lot of really shifty slot receivers that you can find in the later rounds. So I think that's a position. Obviously, we're looking at a pass-happy NFL right now. Kids are realizing that. More kids are starting to play that position. There's also a longer shelf life rather than running back, which is what most of the athletic young kids like to play off the bat. So I think that position's growing in popularity, and we've got another strong class this year. My second position in terms of strength is the linebacker position. Just like you said, Mark, a really, really strong class this year. One of the strongest that I can remember in recent memory, to be quite honest. The 2 guys at the top headlining it, Dean and Lloyd, are just absolute game changers. They can line up in multiple positions. They play sideline to sideline. They can play the pass. They can play the run, and both good character guys and high motor guys. To your point, we've seen exactly how a linebacker in the middle can change a defense. And both of these guys are guys that are going to wear the green dot. They're going to call the plays, and they're going to set the tone for your defense right off the bat. And then my number 1 position, it's got to be the edge rushers for me. You see the talent at the top this year with Hutchinson, Thibodeau, and then it's just so deep after that. I actually, struggle after that as to where to go. Karlaftis is a beast from Purdue. Then you have Ojabo from Michigan, who is raw, but he has arguably some of the best pass rushing tools out of anyone in the draft. Jermaine Johnson, to your note, Cameron Thomas out of San Diego State. I mean, it goes on and on. There are going to be impact players drafted at this position in the 3rd round of this draft. I just think it's loaded. So those are my top 3 positions this year. Any thoughts on my top 3, Mark?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I really like the receiver pick too. Just thinking about some of the guys in this receiver class. I know Drake London has been a big name of recent. I mean, he did get hurt middle of the year, which stinks, but obviously just look at, some of the Alabama guys coming out, Jamison Williams, John Mechie, just unbelievable. And then obviously there's some guys that you and I talked about in the later rounds, Britton Covey out of Utah. So there's a lot of guys who we like. So I do like the receiver, and like to your point, it's becoming more of a passing league. I mean, and just look at LA, look at all the receivers they had with Van Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, and Odell, and just with those many guys, it's like you can't cover them all. And same thing on Cincinnati. I think those are a big reason, why those teams were able to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, that is a great point by you. You look even to expand that to the championship round, right? We know how much talent Kansas City has at the receiver position. It's hard to defend that many guys. And then San Francisco, obviously Debo's the huge name there, but added Ayuk a couple years ago in the first round. Really dynamic player there as well. So the receiver position's an interesting one. And I like your point about the injury to Drake London. We also have an injury to Jamison Williams, and these are top of the position guys, and it makes you wonder whether or not they're going to slide on draft night, and whether or not somebody could get a steal, maybe early second, end of the first, where normally these guys would probably be top 15 picks.
Yeah, it's going to definitely be interesting. I think we have to see what happens coming up, in Indianapolis at the combine, see how these guys are looking, see how they're running routes. So yeah, no, there's a lot. It's a long way. Like you said, we're almost 70 days out, but this is a time where teams are starting to put together their early draft boards. And, this is like the big time right now. Cause as you know, when you build your football team, that core of your football team is built on day 3 picks, rounds 4 through 7. And those are where you find those guys who are going to be either starters or top level reserves that you need to be to build up the depth of your team. So really your team is built on day 3. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. We get the combine and pro days. But yeah, I think the combine, gives us the fans a look at these prospects too. Obviously we watch them in college football, but this is just, one-on-one, getting to see them run around in their underwear. It's a great thing.
Absolutely love the underwear Olympics. So we talked about our top 3 positions in the draft. Now I think we need to talk about the worst position in this year's draft. Mark, what do you think is the worst position in this year's draft?
I kind of kept going back and forth between quarterback and running back, but at least with the quarterback position, we have guys who have some first round grades. With running backs, I don't see any running back getting drafted on day 1. I mean, our top guy in this running back class is Kenneth Walker from Michigan State. I really like him as a player, but he's got a lot of mileage. They used him a ton this year at Michigan State. They pretty much ran him into the ground. And then you have Breece Hall from Iowa State. Kind of the same thing, like big power type back. But I don't really see any of these guys going on day 1. So I'm gonna have to say the worst position this year has got to be running back.
I really can't argue with you there. I had the exact 2 positions that you had when it came down to a quarterback and running back. I do agree. There are no first round running backs to me, and there are no running backs that will be picked in the first round of this year's draft. I went with quarterback though, and the reason that I went with quarterback is simply because I think this class is so underwhelming, and I think the position is so important. Right. And I think that these guys that are in this position are going to get picked way above where they should. I don't have a first round grade on any quarterbacks this year. I do believe that multiple quarterbacks will get picked in the first round, but again, because of the positional importance, it is the most important position in all of sports. But I don't have a first round grade on them. And I think you look at some of these guys at the top and you think about last year's draft where some of them were eligible to come out and they were going to be day 3 picks, right? And none of them had the year that Joe Burrow had at LSU his senior year to skyrocket you up the draft board that much. Right. So the fact that these guys are now going to be talked about in the first round, I just think that they're going to get picked way too high. It's a really, really underwhelming class in the most important position in all of sports. And so I have quarterback at the bottom.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, look at some of the classes we've had recently. 2018 class, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield. Now, grant the other 2 quarterbacks picked haven't really worked out, but that's still, look at Josh Allen as an MVP candidate, had a phenomenal season this year. Lamar Jackson has won an MVP. Then you look at last year's class, you had Trevor Lawrence, who, rough year in Jacksonville with the whole urban thing. Zach Wilson, I hope he makes it in the Jets, but it's the Jets. They messed up Darnold. I hope they don't mess up this kid. And then you had Fields, Lance, and Jones. And then, a guy who's pretty much made a name for himself as the best guy was drafted round 3 by the Houston Texans, Davis Mills. So, you had, 6 pretty good quarterbacks last year. You had a great class a couple of years ago. And I think you're right. Just because of how important the quarterback position is, I think you're right. There's going to be some guys on our list here who are going to go in the first round because not necessarily based off of their talent, but based off their position. And I think that's going to be a huge point. And obviously, as we get into free agency, there's a lot of rumors throwing around. So it's going to be interesting to see what teams at the top of the draft board decide, hey, do we go out and get a veteran quarterback, or do we really believe in one of these rookies we both think are going to be pretty underwhelming? But hey, what do we know? We're just outsiders looking in. So
I agree. And, I think that is a great segment into our next topic here. So one of the topics that we want to dive into, or one of the segments really that we're going to use week after week here on the podcast, is we're going to do 1 to 2 position deep dives each week. So this week we're going to do one, and where else do you start but the most important position in sports? So we're going to dive in here to the quarterback position. We're going to talk a little bit about, again, the overall strength of the position in the draft, which we just talked to, and then what teams are in the market for the position. We're going to dive into what both of us have as our top 5 at the quarterback position, discuss a late rounder that's caught our eye, and then what player at the position we think could potentially end up a Philadelphia Eagle in 2022, because this is the Green Room Podcast, and we are Birds fans. So Mark, I will let you take it away. Talk a little bit more about the overall strength of the position and what teams you really see to be in the market for drafting a quarterback.
Yeah, so I think obviously we both said it's a weak class. There's no really one guy who stands out. But if you look at the way the draft board looks as it's now complete, the first couple teams really do not need a quarterback. Really, I see the first team needing a quarterback is at 6, and that's the Carolina Panthers. I think they're an interesting team to look at because, Matt Rule seems to be on the hot seat, but what will he do? In his second year, they tried out Sam Darnold and it worked. Do they go and draft a rookie quarterback, or does Matt Rule go bold and trade out of that pick? So that's what I think. You have to kind of look at the teams here, and I think you got to look at, some of the situations. Like look at Washington, for example. Do they, they're at 11, once again, behind some teams that really don't need a quarterback, but it's ultimately what they decide to do. They believe in Taylor Heineke. Do they believe in one of these quarterbacks coming out, or do they go after another free agent? So, but yeah, those are the 2 teams I really see going out and getting a quarterback this year, possibly in the draft, just because of their, of where they are on the draft board. And I think, it's high real estate to trade one of those 2 picks.
Yeah, to me, again, overall strength of the position, just really not good, to be quite honest. But the 3 teams to me that I look at and I see going to draft a quarterback, right? I don't see Carolina in the draft to draft a quarterback. Matt Rule's job is beginning to look like it's on the line. And as a coach, you typically don't want to put your job on the line by drafting a guy. Let's look at Matt Nagy, for example, last year.
Yeah,
Justin Fields, right? Justin Fields may be a great player, but to put him in there in his first year and, try to make the playoffs and save your job, that's just not what you want to do. You want to go get a veteran. It's your money and your livelihood on the line. Yeah. So I think there's a couple teams there that may be in the QB market, but they're probably looking at free agents. And this year is such an interesting year because not only do we have not a great draft class at quarterback, but we have so many big names that could be out there to be had in free agency, right? We have the MVP, Aaron Rodgers. We have Russell Wilson, potentially Deshaun Watson. Oh, rumors are flying now about Kyler Murray, maybe. And Carson Wentz this weekend. Exactly. So there's a lot of different ways you could get a quarterback this year. But the 3 teams to me that I look at and I think about, I see the Houston Texans as a team that could draft a quarterback, not at the top necessarily, but could get a quarterback maybe in the 2nd round or 3rd round. I know Davis Mills came in last year. I wasn't blown away by him myself. And I think that when you're a team that's not in win now mode and you're trying to build through the draft over multiple years, that you want to bring your quarterback in that's a young guy that grows with those players and grows those relationships. Another team that I have is Washington, which you talked about, Mark. Again, don't think they're in win now mode. I don't think they have the talent on their roster. So I think that they need to go out and get a young guy. It's not all about winning right now. It's about creating a culture there. They've got some good young pieces that are going to be there for a while. Chase Young, McLaurin, Montez Sweat. And then the other team to me, and they could be a team that goes after a veteran, but I just think that they have to finally get the draft right in terms of the quarterback position, is the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yep, couldn't agree more.
They've tried so many times now. And Mason Rudolph, let's just be honest, he's a bust. He might have gotten worse after Myles Garrett hit him in the head with his helmet. They've tried multiple quarterbacks in Pittsburgh through the draft. None of them have worked. Big Ben is gone now. It's time to make that pick. They're sitting at a spot in the first round where most of these guys should be. They may even get their pick of the draft at quarterback. So I think that's a team where they're going to try to get that guy. And, they have to have a young guy that can compete for a while because of the QBs that are in that division in Burrow and Lamar, and in that conference when you add in Herbert, Mahomes, and Allen. So.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And another team that popped in my head too is the New Orleans Saints. I think this is a team that's going to have to draft a quarterback because they're almost 90 million over the salary cap right now. So that means a lot of players can be on the move. And I don't know if they're going to have the money to bring in a free agent quarterback. So I think, Sean Payton leaving and Dennis Allen now getting promoted. I think Dennis Allen can go out and get his own guy. I know they got Taysom Hill. I know they could possibly bring back Jameis Winston, but just based on their salary cap issues alone, I think this would be a perfect time while they're in hard rebuild mode at this moment. Go take a chance on a young guy. I mean, what hurt? I mean, what's going to hurt? So I think New Orleans Saints, to me, that's another team that just popped into my head. But it's crazy. The NFC South, we already said, the Panthers. I mean, even look at the Buccaneers too. Losing Tom Brady, what do they do? So the NFC South is definitely in the market for a quarterback. So
Kyle Trask, baby, Kyle Trask.
I know they drafted. I know, but I'm just saying, pretty much every team in that division. I mean, maybe what does Atlanta do too? Atlanta could be another team that could draft a QB. So that whole division is what I'm looking at.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, and I liked Kyle Trask as a draft prospect. I don't know that I would put him in there if I'm trying to continue to make playoff runs as the Bucs have in recent years. So that I was joking on that one, but I agree with your points. I think the NFC South is definitely a division to watch. We could see 4 new quarterbacks there. And to your point about New Orleans, I think it's a great point that they have to get some young talent in there. They have to build through the draft. You might see them start to try to stack up the compensatory picks in coming years to try to dig out of that salary cap hole and bring young talent in. But for this year alone, to your point, you got to get guys, impact guys for cheap money. And the other thing is Dennis Allen taking over there as the coach. We know how much Sean Payton loved Taysom Hill. We don't know how much Dennis Allen loves Taysom Hill. So if Taysom's out of the equation, it's just Jameis. He's coming back off of an injury. There could potentially be some money to be saved getting out of a contract there. So that is definitely a team to look at there. But moving on, continuing with the quarterback position, we want to get into our top 5 QBs in this year's draft. We're going to have a little debate here. We're going to talk about the strengths and weaknesses of each guy and what team we could see them going to in the draft. And we will build up from number 5 to number 1. So, Mark, you go first. Who's your number 5 QB in this year's draft?
Number 5. This guy kind of under the radar. I'm going to go with my guy, Carson Strong, Nevada Wolfpack. Big quarterback. He's got the big arm. Kind of reminds me of like a Josh Allen a little bit. Doesn't have quite that mobility, but his arm strength is no joke. This kid can throw the ball out of the stadium like Mahomes. So I really like Carson Strong just based on his potential. Otto, who do you got at number 5?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I want to hit on your number 5, Carson Strong. I really do like Carson Strong. Huge arm, absolutely. At times, though, has some strange underthrows. We don't see the athleticism out of them that we see out of some of the other quarterbacks in this draft, and that's not the biggest knock for me. I do believe that the quarterbacks that run too much end up banged up at the end of the year. But what I haven't seen from him yet is the decisiveness before the play. He seems to hold the ball too long, and when you don't have the mobility to extend plays, that can be an issue. So I actually have Carson Strong just outside of my top 5 at number 6. So similar there, but I do like the arm talent with Carson Strong. I just like to see him progress through his reads pre-snap a little bit better. My number 5 quarterback is Desmond Ritter, the Cincinnati guy. Yes. So he takes Cincinnati to the college football playoff. a great leader. If you listen to any interview that Desmond Ritter has, he's a great leader, talks a lot about how he's grown during his 4 years at Cincinnati. He's a very coachable kid. You'll see that. He's a very humble kid, and he really has a great arm. But my issue with Desmond Ritter, and the reason that he's at number 5 for me, is, again, it's getting through his reads. So if you turn on Desmond Ritter's tape, they run a lot of RPO at Cincinnati. He either hands it to the running back, runs it himself, or gets it out to his receiver on a quick hit slant or an out route, right? If that out route is covered up and he can't run, he almost immediately gets happy feet. He starts to jump around bound in the pocket. He's uncomfortable. He doesn't know where his second read is. And even in his straight drop passes, which is probably the second most popular play in Cincinnati's offense, it's really only a one read and hit. A lot of Alec Pierce throws, no matter what the route is, really. So I see that, and I hesitate with moving him to the next level where the pre-snap read is so important. But I think that he has a lot of tools to improve on. If a coach was to get him and he was in the right system, he could really grow there. And one thing I did like about him was in the Senior Bowl, they put him under center, which he didn't do a lot at Cincinnati, and he looked really comfortable there. So to be put in that position, you're with new guys that you haven't played with, right? You're learning a new offensive playbook in a week. You're with new coaches, and then they're going to throw you under center. And I know it looks easy at home, but I'm telling you, getting the snap is not the easiest thing. And then the footwork afterwards is a big difference from being in the shotgun. And I thought he did a great job. But anyways, Desmond Ritter is my number 5 quarterback.
I think as this list gets on, you're gonna be so shocked what I have. I mean, it's gonna be wild. But number 4, I really wanted to put this guy at 5. I really wanted to. I've been not hating on him all year, but Kenny Pickett is number 4, and it pains me he's even in my top 5. And here's why: he's 5th year in college, and in a crap year at the ACC, this guy barely won. And that's what I don't like to see. He had one good year in his 5th year. If you're going to have one good year in your 5th year, go out there and be like Joe Burrow. Go out there and win the national championship. I'm not big on Pickett. I don't think his arm strength is there. I do think he is a tremendous leader. If you hear a lot of the interviews, like you said, to Ritter, his teammates love him, coaches love him. But, I mean, to me, I just don't see him hitting his ceiling. He's already an extra year older, which kind of worries me a little bit. And like I said, he just didn't really win that much in college, which really scares me. That's what scared me about Jared Goff, too, in 2016, which just, when you're at a program, you're not winning too much. Is that really going to translate to winning in the NFL? So I got Kenny Pickett at number 4.
If you can hear in Mark's voice, what he's really trying to say to you is, as a Temple Owl, I'm never rooting for someone who decommits from Temple and goes to Pitt. That is what he's really saying. As soon as Kenny Pickett did that, didn't matter what he would do in college, didn't matter if he won a national championship. He was not going to be the number 1 quarterback on Mark DiGiovanni's draft board for 2022. That is what he was saying right there.
Yeah, well, I mean, really, it comes down to my boards. Can you reach your top potential? And I think just having that extra year for him, it's going to be tough. I think he has to go to the perfect situation, like to a team that's not ready to win now, but maybe like a year or 2 away. So that's my thing, is he's got to go to the perfect situation. You can't just go to you can't really build with him. He's got to jump in right away because he's an older guy.
I will say that I disagree with where I have Kenny Pickett, that's for sure, but I think you'll all see that coming up. So I will jump over to my number 4 quarterback. My number 4 quarterback, and this one was really hard for me. I actually moved him down from number 2 this week, is Malik Willis. So Ooh. Malik Willis, all of the raw talent that you want in a quarterback, right? Definitely the biggest ceiling out of any QB in this year's draft. To me, also the biggest floor. Okay. And what I see out of Malik Willis, I see an absolute hose for an arm. I see the ability to run that's going to translate to the next level, right? And so you're sitting there going, okay, so why is he at number 4? Well, he tucks and runs too much. As soon as his receiver isn't open on his first read, he takes off and runs. He's not yet comfortable going through his reads, right? He takes too many hits when he runs. And to me, I'm sitting there watching this year, and right, we're watching Arizona get to 6-0, and you're like, yeah, but is Kyler going to stay healthy? And we're watching Russell Wilson get hurt, and we're watching Jalen Hurts at the end of the year is hurt, and Lamar Jackson couldn't play games at the end of the year. These running quarterbacks, I know it's flashy, it's fun. They make so many things happen. They stretch a defense and make them defend every aspect of the field. But when you take too many hits, you can't play a full NFL season. And I'm really worried about that with Malik Willis, the next level. He takes on hits when he runs. He's built to take hits, but I don't know that he's built to take 17 weeks of hits in the NFL and 20 if you're trying to go to a Super Bowl. But then the other two things with Malik Willis to me that really kind of turned me away from him was he doesn't seem to have a lot of touch on his passes. He's got a cannon for an arm, but everything's a flat throw. And as we know in the NFL, they're tight windows, and sometimes you have to throw the ball with a little bit of air under it to get it over that second level defender. I don't see that in his game. And then the other thing is I've watched some interviews with Malik Willis, and he just doesn't seem like a guy who's going to rally the locker room to me. He's soft-spoken. He didn't look interviewers in the eyes when he's interviewing one-on-one with someone. And he doesn't answer questions really fully. So I just question how he's going to rally his locker room of guys when he gets to the next level. But like I said, I think that his ceiling is the highest out of any prospect. He's the hardest to evaluate out of any QB in this year's class. And I think for me, as we lead up to the draft, he probably won't be at number 4. He could be anywhere. He could really move anywhere. So that's my number 4 quarterback is Malik Willis.
Yeah, actually, my number 3 quarterback is Malik, and it's the same reasons that you have too. Obviously, he's got the biggest ceiling. I mean, he's just a freak of an athlete, but he also has the biggest floor. My concern to me is that he was a highly touted recruit coming out of high school, committed to Auburn, couldn't win the job at Auburn and transferred to Liberty. I mean, if you're going to make one of those moves from, a top program like Auburn to go to Liberty, I mean, you seriously have to go there and absolutely dominate. And, I thought, a lot of hype out of him at Liberty, great school down there in Virginia. But he did not win in college. And ultimately, like I keep saying, like, for me, you got to win. And he just did not win in college. And even big games, like he had a big game against Ole Miss this year where a lot of people, Malik Willis, and he didn't do much. He was very underwhelming in a big game and against an NFL style defense like Ole Miss. That really worried me. And I think that's why I have him at 3-2. I have him above the other guys just based on potential alone, but that's really it. I mean, if he didn't have that potential, I think this guy's probably maybe the 10th quarterback overall, but his potential's there. And I think if you really believe in him, if you really have some coaches who believe that I could work with this guy, then I can see it happening. But I think for all the right reasons that you said, I think that's why he lands at number 3 for me.
Yeah, I totally agree with your sentiment there. The Ole Miss game to me was a very big turnoff. Ole Miss, a lot of great players on that defense, but that defense was giving up high points every single week to Division I single A schools, and then Liberty walks in there and Malik Willis throws 3 picks against a defense that's given up 30 points a game. So that doesn't bode well for him to go against NFL talent. Now, I know that the rest of the Liberty roster was not helping him. If you watch the game, he's constantly under pressure, and he does actually start to come back at the end. So I give the kid a lot of credit for sticking in that game, persevering, right? But, to your point, I think that this is a guy that's going to have to land in the perfect spot. And when I think about that, I think about you have to have an offensive play caller that knows how to utilize him correctly, is going to be patient with him. And it probably also needs to go to a spot where there's a veteran QB and he can sit for a year.
Exactly.
To me, I think he needs to be in the situation that Patrick Mahomes was in, where he sat behind Alex Smith, he had Andy Reid, they were patient, they know how to groom a quarterback, and that's really that's where Malik Willis needs to land for me in order to be successful.
I mean, yeah, look at San Francisco. Look at that risk they took with Trey Lance, but they knew they had Jimmy Garoppolo. It's the exact same situation where you could, he could sit there and learn under Jimmy Garoppolo, where same thing Patrick Mahomes can learn under Alex Smith. So I think you're right. I think he has to go to a spot where, hey, look, maybe the Detroit Lions could be a spot from, maybe at the end of the first round, because obviously they have the Rams pick. Maybe they trade up to get him, sit behind Jared Goff and just learn the offense and get used to, the play calls and going through reads. But I completely agree with you with everything you said.
Yeah. So my third quarterback, with Willis already gone, my third quarterback is Matt Corral from Ole Miss. I like Matt Corral a lot. I still have a second round grade on him as a quarterback. When I dive into his film, you can see how much of a competitor this guy is, right? Plays in the bowl game when he's got nothing left on the line. I really love when the players do that. Sadly, he got hurt in that game. But I love that he went out there, and when he was asked about it, he said, I'm finishing my road here and I'm playing with my brothers. And that's what it's all about. When you listen to this guy speak in his interviews, you can hear just how much he loves being coached by Lane Kiffin and how much he takes in. He reiterates what Lane has preached to him about playing the position, about his fundamentals and those things. So you know that the kid's a sponge. He loves football. He loves showing up to work, and he's going to learn, right? And he's genuinely a happy kid. When I look at the interviews, my comparison to him interview-wise is Mac Jones last year. Right. And the way that he treats the game and cares about the game, which I think is a great thing. Mac Jones, we saw how successful he was this year, willing to learn and got better throughout the year for the Patriots. But moving through Matt Corral, I think it's about average arm strength for Corral. He's kind of short arms the ball in his motion, which I think hinders his deep accuracy and also causes him to get under the ball a little bit at times and sail it. He's got okay strength on the ball when thrown to the sideline. Again, this is why I don't have a first round grade on him. I struggle with him making NFL level throws on a 11-yard comeback route or a 10-yard out to the sideline, right? I do think that his running ability will somewhat translate to the NFL. And I do think that he does a decent job of going through his reads. Not great pocket presence, but he does do a decent job of going through his reads when he's not in a standard RPO play. So that's really my overview on Matt Corral. I think he's a good player. Again, a second round grade on him. I think he'll probably end up getting picked in the first, to be quite honest, but I've got a second round grade on him.
Yeah, actually, my number 2 guy is Matt Corral. It's funny how we keep tiptoeing each other. But yeah, Matt Corral. I mean, for me, he won a lot of games in college, but he couldn't get the big win. When it was time for him to take on Alabama, he kind of folded, and that's not really due to him. It's the whole team and all that. But I mean, they also had some great weapons down there at Ole Miss too. But think about for me, Matt Corral. Obviously, I think a big thing in today's game is still being able to manage the pocket. And I just want to see him have more accuracy on his throws, have a little bit more velocity. Obviously, we know he can shoot the ball. He has a big arm, but I just want to see him work on that accuracy a little bit. There's some throws where you watch on his film where he had some guys open, and if he just puts that ball in the right place, they are turned to touchdowns. But I think you're right. I think he's definitely should be a day 2 pick, but I think he's going to be a top 10 pick just based on his position.
Yeah, absolutely. So my number 2 pick, and this would be the one where if anybody's going to say this is a hot take, this would be where people are going to jump on me. But my number 2 quarterback in this year's draft is Sam Howell from North Carolina.
Whoa, whoa. What a curveball. What a curveball. Whoa.
So Sam Howell from North Carolina, who may not be in Mark's top 5, but that's Mark's mistake.
I have him at 6, actually.
Sam Howell, to me, This guy does the best job of progressing through his reads of anyone in this draft. You turn on the tape against him. One of the tapes that was actually was a negative, a lot of people thought, was the game where he played Kenny Pickett. There were about 6 NFL GMs that showed up to that game. You have 2 guys that are thought to be 2 of the top quarterbacks in this year's draft, and people are there to see, you know, how both of them play and who's going to outplay the other one, right? And Pickett comes out and lights him up in the first half. Howell comes back in the second, and then Pickett ends up pulling it out at the end. But if you turn on that game and you start to watch the little intricacies, watch how many times that Sam Howell identifies the coverage pre-snap, realizes its zone, and either looks off the linebacker or the safety to one side and comes back to the other side. He does a better job of that, right? Which is your pre-snap read and then using your eyes and your feet, which move your eyes as a quarterback, right? He does a better job of that than anyone in this year's draft, okay? Along with that, I love the kid's motion. I think he's got good NFL arm strength. He could use a little bit more on his ball throwing to the sidelines. His deep ball accuracy isn't the best, but it's all right. One thing that I do love about his deep ball, he puts air under his deep ball better than anybody in this draft. Somewhat to a, you know, Russell Wilson does a great job putting air under his deep ball, right? Not throwing that as a flat ball. You allow your receiver to go and track it, right? Sometimes if you underthrow it, that receiver can stop, make the DB stop and accelerate. He does a great job of putting air under that deep ball. So I really like that about Sam Howell. The things that I don't necessarily love about Howell, again, I think the arm strength could be a little bit better. The movement in the pocket is not great. I still think he needs to do a better job of sliding and finding the soft spots in the pocket. And then the other thing with Sam Howell is I don't believe he did a good job of running the ball in his last year here at North Carolina. I don't believe that will translate to the NFL. I think he'll be able to avoid sacks every now and then, but I don't necessarily think he's going to be running. So a lot of people will look at that as a downside. You know, I don't have it as a huge downside. But that's my breakdown of Sam Howell. I also watched some interviews with Howell, does a really good job of speaking. I think has a really good understanding of what an offense wants to do and how to open things up, which translates to those pre-snap reads that he's so good at, right? And yeah, I guess I'll stop there going on and on about my hot take and my love for Sam Howell as the number 2 quarterback.
Yeah, definitely. I did not expect. I swear to God, did not expect that. That was like
now, wait, time out. Before you even go to your whole he didn't win and blah blah blah, and the big knock on the kid, right, is that De'Ami Brown, Javonte Williams, blah, right, 2 receivers, 2 running backs last year. They leave the NFL, and his team stinks this last year, right? That's everybody's take. Okay, do yourselves a favor if you are looking at Sam Howell. Turn on the tape and watch just how many times he puts a ball in a receiver's hands and it gets dropped, okay? He can't catch the ball for him too. Just do yourself that favor.
I like it. No, I'm just saying I appreciate it. I was just gonna say I was a big Sam Howell guy coming into this college football season. I think North Carolina came into the year in the top 10. I think a lot of people expected big things out of North Carolina, especially in the ACC, where Clemson had a really down year that nobody expected. And I really expected Sam Howell to step up and lead North Carolina, if not into the Final Four, but close enough. And it was just a disappointing season for them. And I think that's going to hurt Sam Howell just because he didn't really develop as a player this much. I think he degressed instead of progressed. So that's why I didn't really like Sam Howell. I was a huge fan last year, but I think because it was a terrible season, I think a lot of things went wrong. You know, obviously they lost, Javonte Williams and Michael Carter to the NFL, and they did lose a lot of weapons. But still, I think a lot of people were expecting a lot of big things from him. But my number 1, my guy, this is my dude, number 1, Cincinnati, the pride of Ohio, Desmond Ritter, baby. Let's go. Number one, this kid I absolutely love. Yeah, Otto, you knocked him or when you had him at your fifth. And yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But this guy, 44-6 as a starting quarterback. He's got great velocity off the when that ball comes off his hands. And if you watch that tape against Alabama, hey, same thing like Sam Howell. A ton of drops. If a few of those catches go the right way, they're right in that game, and they might be dethroned into kings. Who knows? But I really like Desmond Ritter. I really like his body of work. And I think out of anybody, I think he's the most NFL ready quarterback. And that's why I have him at number one. Sure, he can be a little bit better on progressions, be a little bit better in the pocket, and make some, better decisions pre-snap. I think that's something he can work on watching tape. But I do really like his body of work, and especially taking a school like Cincinnati, who everyone pretty much counted out the last 2 years, and to get him into a Final Four contention, I think that says a lot. Obviously, there's some other players in this draft who expected to do that, and they didn't really do that. And I really love his leadership ability, and that's why I have him as my number one quarterback.
All right, so
You're
I'll
in shock.
comment on that,
You're
and
in shock.
then I'll move to my number one. So let me get this straight, right? We're gonna knock Matt Corral because he couldn't win the big game, but it's okay that Desmond Ritter loses to Alabama. Desmond Ritter is playing in the AAC, and I love my Owls, but that's not a hard win. And
your face is bright red.
I'm struggling with the Desmond Ritter, but okay. Anyways, I'm gonna move to my number one because clearly we're not seeing eye to eye on this.
When you said Desmond Ritter at 5, I just couldn't wait for this moment because I knew you were gonna be like, "Huh? What did he just say?"
I knew you liked Ritter, but I didn't think you'd have him at 1.
But then again, like we've been saying, like this class is so weak, and I just think that out of anybody in this class, I just think he's the most NFL ready. And I mean, really, that's what I have. I mean, really, it's like so hard to pick my number one guy. So I just went with the guy who I like the most. I love his story, and I really like the kid a lot, and I think he can be a very good quarterback. But if he was in the draft, if he was going to come out last year, like he would definitely be like a 4th round pick. But he's probably going to be another first rounder.
Yeah. Hey, and you know what, to your point, I mean, we could sit here and argue all day long about who we have number 1, number 2. It's an underwhelming class. A lot of these guys are bunched right together. I could move my top 5 up and down every day by watching, a million new things about them. So I think to your point, a lot of people are going to have it different ways. For people listening, we'd love to hear your top 5 if you want to add it into the comments below the video. And let us know, your top 5, maybe who you like more between Mark's and mine. It's probably not going to be Desmond Ritter at number 1, but hey, everybody gets their opinion.
Yeah, so let's hear it. Let's hear it.
My number 1 is Kenny Pickett. I mean, come on. You look at this. Let's just start off the bat with the stats, right? So let's go through my top 5. Okay, 30 touchdowns, 8 picks for Ritter, 27-12 for Willis, 20-5 for Corral, 24-9 for Howell, 42-7 for Kenny Pickett. The guy just went out and balled this year, right? Pulled a fake slide as the exclamation on his season, right? And he takes Pitt to win the ACC. And I know it's a down year. Clemson wasn't as good, but he played a great game against Clemson. He played a great game against North Carolina. He won games at the end. And I think that when you look at the tools that this kid has, I think it translates to the NFL the best. I think he does the best job of throwing the sideline routes, which I've already hit on. There's such a huge part in the NFL, those deep out routes. His accuracy on those throws and the strength and the power behind those throws are NFL level. Okay. His deep ball accuracy needs some work. His pocket presence does need some work, but he does a good job of going through his reads. I have him as probably the second best going through his reads behind Sam Howell, right? Who I went into on the pre-snap reads. But then you transition this. So, I think about being able to throw the out routes, right? The deep ball accuracy may not be there. The pocket presence, I don't think is great sliding in the pocket, but I don't think anybody in this year's draft class does a great job at that. But where he really separates for me is he was able to carry his team this year, right? He's got an NFL frame. Okay. The guy's 6'3" and 225 pounds. He can take a hit. He can run the ball. I don't think that he's going to be an elite runner. He's not going to be Lamar Jackson at the next level, but he can make plays probably better than Joe Burrow. And that's going to be a quality that matters at the next level when the play breaks down. Right. And then you actually noted it when you were hating on Kenny Pickett. But one of the things that you said was good about him was his leadership and being able to really rally the troops. And I think you see that. And I think that's one of the strengths about him being an older prospect, right? Is that leadership tends to come as you mature, right? And I think he definitely has that. But I do realize, to your point, 5th-year senior, that can be a knock on him. But my number one, when I put all the tools together, is Kenny Pickett.
I just think it's so funny how my number one was your number 5 and your number 1 was my number 4. I just think that's hilarious how pinpoint how our number 1s are so far off from each other. It's just really funny. Just going back. I don't know. But like you said,
absolutely. Yeah. And hey, we're gonna find out who's on it a little bit more, but we'll see. That's what I think is fun about this, right? Everybody can have their opinions, everybody can watch the same videos, and they can come out with different opinions on this. But before we move away from our top 5 quarterbacks, right? Let's talk about, and we'll just quickly go through this because we ate up a good amount of time talking about some of the strengths and weaknesses. If you had to pick a team right now, where does each quarterback land? So start with your 5th guy, tell me where they're going, and work up to number 1, and then I will go through my top 5.
Yeah, I think Carson Strong, I think this one's really interesting, and I think he can go to a team, possibly if this only happens if things go bad, but I can totally see him going to the Dallas Cowboys. And the reason is I'm not so sure if what they're going to do at the backup quarterback position, behind Prescott. And Prescott, I mean, he's kind of banged up, and I think this could be a good opportunity for him to go to a team like Dallas, who's committed to Dak, but then again, he can go there and learn a little bit under Kellen Moore if he's still the coordinator. So I think, just looking at the draft board the way it is, I don't think they'll take him in the first round, but I think that would be a good team for him. And then number 4, it's so hard to see where Kenny Pickett goes. I gotta say it. He's staying in Pittsburgh. He's staying in the Steel City. Mike Tomlin can't help himself. He's staying right there in Pittsburgh. Number 3, Malik Willis. I think this guy has to go to such a specialized team, like you said, Otto. So a team that I could totally see him going to, and I know this might sound crazy because they got a few guys there, but I could totally see him going to the Baltimore Ravens. One, because they have Lamar Jackson, who kind of does the same thing. And if they really, and I know Tyler Huntley has looked great, but I totally can see the Ravens trying to throw him in a trade. And that way you have Malik Willis right there. So I think, Greg Roman knows how to work with guys like that. So I think that's a team that fits well for him. Not sure if they'll draft him. Number 2, Matt Corral. I have him going to the Washington Commanders. I think he's kind of like Taylor Heineke in a sense. Similar skill set, but obviously a rookie. I think he's going to have a lot more potential than him. And then Desmond Ritter. I mean, this guy can go anywhere. To your point, I think he goes to Atlanta. I think it makes sense. I think Atlanta, this is the year they move on from Matt Ryan. I can totally see him going to Atlanta, working with Arthur Smith. So I can see that happening. But those are some of the teams I have in mind for my guys.
Yeah, those are interesting. I can see them all happening. But obviously we're so far away. We're just kind of, shooting into the wind with these predictions right now, given that free agency hasn't even started. Mine, my version of shooting into the wind is I'll start with Ritter, my number 5, and I have him going to Houston. I think it'd be a good spot for him. I think, like I said earlier, that's a team that needs a young quarterback that will grow. And I think that organization right now, given some of the things that have gone on lately, I think they're looking for high character guys, and that's Desmond Ritter to me. Really humble kid, really high character. To Mark's point, he won a lot at the college level, so I think Houston tries to build around him, and I think it's probably a second round pick there. Malik Willis, I am totally buying into the rumor mill with this one. I've got him going to Pittsburgh. And I heard the rumor came out of the Senior Bowl week that everyone was talking about this kid is just, everybody thinks he's going to the Steelers. And normally for any other team in the NFL, I'm like, that immediately makes me think, no way. Whenever you see a guy who's maybe outside, or a team that's outside of the top 10 in their pick, and you see mock drafts, just all of them being like, this guy's the guy, right? You're like, there's no way it's going to happen. It's too good to be true, and you're too far back in the draft. But to me, Pittsburgh pulled it off last year. Everybody knew they were going Najee Harris, and they got Najee Harris. So why would I go against them? I hear the rumor they want Malik Willis, and I'm going to stick with it. Matt Corral at number 3. I have the same prediction as you, Mark. I've got him going to Washington. High character guy here. Ron Rivera is bringing in a lot of high character guys there. I think he fits in with what they want to do in that offense. He does a good job of getting that ball out quick, and that's what that offense is focused on. Matt Howell, I have him here going to Tampa Bay.
Wait, I thought you were a big Kyle Trask guy. You're sending Sam Allen to Tampa Bay. What is going on? What is going on?
Wow. I have him going to Tampa. And I thought about Carson Strong to Tampa, but I'm putting Matt Howell here. I just have a higher grade on Howell than I have on Strong. So anyways, what I really like about him, we're going to get back to the Bruce Arians offense this year, which is not the offense they ran under Tom Brady. That was the Tom Brady offense. Bruce Arians' offense is predicated on getting the ball out quick underneath and then hitting deep shots, right? And holding the ball and hitting deep shots. And I noted in my evaluation of Howell, I really like how he throws the deep ball. I think he could improve a little bit on his accuracy, but he puts a lot of air under it. That gives a guy like Mike Evans time to adjust to the ball, get into a jump ball situation, and make a play. So I like him going to Tampa Bay. And then with Pickett, I think he's the number 1 guy in the draft. And I heard rumors this week that they liked him. So I'm going to stick with the rumors that I'm hearing. I've got him going to Carolina right there in the top 10 as the first quarterback off the board.
I think that makes sense for Carolina if they went that way. Because I think, one, he's kind of an older guy. And if they did strike out on, Russell Wilson or, some of the other big name QBs out there, I think that could be an ideal landing spot for him for sure, especially the, Matty Rule on the, on the fence.
Absolutely. So talking about quarterbacks, not all about the top 5. Give me one guy, Mark, outside of your top 5 that has caught your eye and you think could have some success at the next level.
Yeah, actually, I got to credit my boy, Harrison Doan, down there in Western Kentucky at grad school. And I'm going to go with the Bailey Zappi. I mean, this is going to sound really weird. He had a great year at Western Kentucky, led the nation in passing touchdowns, 52, led the nation in passing yards as well, 4,941, and led the nation as well with yards per game with 414 on average. This guy put up a lot. He put up some big numbers, put up Joe Burrow type numbers this year, and he really flew under the radar, which nobody picked up. And I think this guy, he's got all the attributes, great leader, won a lot of games down there at Western Kentucky, won a bowl game. So yeah, I think that guy is definitely a sleeper. Nobody has on their radar, but that's definitely a guy to keep on, keep your eye on.
Yeah. No, I like Zappi as a prospect. Probably have him a late day 2 pick. he did a really good job at the Senior Bowl. A lot of people thought that with the cast of quarterbacks that were down there, he might be the kind of the oddball out, but he played with the top guys in this year's draft. So I like Zappy, but my late round guy is Jack Cohn from Notre Dame, but also played at Wisconsin in his earlier years. What I like about Cohn is how his game translates to the NFL. So you think about playing in the Wisconsin offense, under center offense, right? That's more NFL style. And then even at Notre Dame, where he was mainly out of the gun, a lot of usage of tight ends at Notre Dame, not as much RPO. So you're looking at a lot more of an NFL offense. Cohn does a great job. Again, pre-snap read really, really impressed me in the East-West Shrine game out in Las Vegas. Did a great job with a cast of guys that he's never played with before. I think he was 4 for his first 4 out there, but there was a 3rd down and long play. And he took this ball, he takes the snap, the running back breaks out to the right, running back's in the flat, and they're giving him the running back. It was like 3rd and 17, I believe. They're giving him the running back. Defense is going to rally up and tackle him. And he's got his outside receiver to that same side, running a deep comeback that brings him back 1 yard past the first down marker. And there are 3 guys, cover 2 zone coverage. There are 3 guys in zone coverage at all different angles around this receiver. Jack Cohn looks to the running back the whole way. And before the receiver even makes his break, he plants his back foot, steps into the throw, and throws a laser between all 3 defenders. First down, keeps the chains moving, and ends up scoring a touchdown. Jack Cohn, to me, is one guy in the later rounds that I really think his game will translate well to the NFL. So moving forward, we're going to move off of the quarterback position now. And we're going to do a segment here that we're going to try to continue week after week. And that segment is your sleeper of the week. So, Mark, who's your sleeper of the week? Any position here?
Sleeper of the week. I'm going to throw a wild one, an absolute crazy one. I actually texted you about this because I don't know. I was reading Pro Football Focus. I don't know why this caught my eye. Linebacker from Montana State Bobcats, Troy Anderson. And this guy is probably the most interesting draft prospect. He actually competed for their starting quarterback job. So he actually played both ways. He played a little bit of running back, a little bit of tight end this year, and played linebacker, but absolutely a freak in nature at the linebacker position. Led the team in tackles, led the team in sacks. He actually called the defensive play calls as well. So I think that is a wild guy to see in the 6th or 7th round. Troy Anderson, the pride of Montana State.
I could not agree with you more on the talent that Troy Anderson has. I don't think he's making it to the 6th or 7th round. I think he's going to be gone in the 3rd. Goes to the Senior Bowl, and everyone's like, who's this kid from Montana State? And he just balls out all around the ball. Almost every play was in the game. Got the size to play at the NFL level and the speed. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, I actually found the video of him in high school. He was like all Montana in track. Like he has a blazing speed, and he can basically play anywhere. They played him at edge rusher, linebacker. They literally had him play running back and tight end. Like you could literally put him anywhere. Like he's just a football player.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to give a couple quick mentions here so that people can go look these guys up because I think that the sleepers don't get enough love, these late round guys. Mark talked about how this is where your team is built, right? So I want to give a couple guys names, throw them out there, and then I will say my sleeper of the week. So quick, Wandel Robinson, wide receiver, Kentucky, I believe. Short, shifty, has a burst, right? Can move laterally in short spaces and make people miss on tackles, and then can take off in the open field. Go take a look at Wandel Robinson. Could be picked as high as the 3rd round, but probably a little bit later. He's going to be a playmaker in the slot for somebody. My other mention is To'o from Alabama, the linebacker. Gets overlooked so much because Christian Harris is on that defense and so many other players like Battle, Anderson, and these guys. But I'm not going to lie. I found To'o when I was watching for Christian Harris, because the guy is around the ball every single play. I don't necessarily think that he will be, I don't think he'll be a star at the next level. I think he's a little bit undersized for NFL linebacker, but he's going to make a difference on special teams. He flies around, and he's a guy that you can get late and can probably play a third linebacker role for you. My sleeper of the week, though, Juanie Thomas from Georgia Tech. So this guy caught my eye. He's a safety. This guy caught my eye in the East-West Shrine game out in Vegas. And he came up on one hit, and he hit the guy so hard that the guy woke up and thought he was in LA. He was all over the field, okay? Big hit after big hit, didn't miss any tackles. So I looked the guy up, right? To your point about Troy Anderson, this guy was a return specialist at Georgia Tech, had never played defense before, and they transition him over to safety. And all he does is just follow the ball everywhere. Incredible ball skills from being a return specialist. And what really impresses me, again, is that this guy didn't play defense, and he's out here not only tackling people and is a great tackler, but he's bringing the wood when he tackles, okay? He's lighting people up, right? So Juanie Thomas, to me, is going to be a guy who probably needs to continue to get coached up at the NFL level just due to the lack of experience at the safety position. But he's 6'3", 220 pounds. He's got NFL size. He's going to be a ball hawk if you can coach him right. And that is my sleeper of the week.
Wow, I like it. That's crazy. It was just like, it's funny like how like both their guys are just kind of like, not like gadget type players, but just like coach was like, hey, like let's just put this guy here. And all of a sudden, like it's a huge difference for their team. But yeah, no, I definitely like find our sleepers of the week because, hey, if it's the one day, like we look like 5 or 6 years down, they'd be like, hey, remember I told you about that guy, that 7th round draft pick out of, Southwest Missouri State? Yeah, look who called that one. But yeah, no,
absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, these are the guys who really round out your team. I mean, we see teams all the time. Like, look at the teams that make deep runs in the playoffs. They're always the teams that draft well. I mean, except the LA Rams, who pretty much traded their entire draft for their team. But
well, I want to discount that. The Rams drafted well with the picks they had.
They did
a great job in the middle rounds of
yeah, exactly.
that top talent.
Yeah, they did. They did a great job there. If I'm just saying, I meant like just in terms of their first round picks, they traded a lot of them for their big name guys. But no, really, look at some of these teams. I mean, even Cincinnati, yeah, everyone says, oh, well, they didn't draft offensive line, but look where they found Logan Wilson. Look where they found T. Higgins. I mean, these are the guys that really make and embody your team. I mean, sure, they're probably not the greatest players, but they're guys that make an impact. And really, like we keep saying, it's day three picks. And but yeah, it's not always about the big names. Everyone loves the big, sexy names, but sometimes we gotta remember those guys who are doing the grunt work, as the special teamers and the grinders who are the reserves, really body out the team as well.
Absolutely. Could not agree more with that. So a quick fun segment, and then we'll get to our last segment tonight. Fun segment here. Mark, which player in the draft has your favorite nickname of any player?
I don't know if any nicknames, but I've kind of given some self nicknames to players. So like for me, I don't know why, but Malik the Freak Willis, I don't know why, that was a kind of good one I came up with. Or Will the Thrill Levis when he was at Penn State, just because whenever he came in for Clifford, he was just a thrill to watch. So I'll have to look into more of the nicknames, but there are some of my self-proclaimed nicknames I've given some players.
Yeah, absolutely. My self-proclaimed nickname is for your guy, Kenny Pickett. And that is Pickett and Flick It, baby. He's flicking the ball all over the field, right? But the nickname that I have as the favorite is Sauce Gardner.
Yeah.
The corner in Cincinnati. He's definitely saucing it up there. Out there. I won't tell you exactly where I have him in our cornerback rankings so that you have to tune in when we cover the cornerback position. But he's definitely in my top 5. I will say that. So moving on, our last segment of the night, this will be one that we touch on every week. And this is just, you're watching film, you're watching guys breaking people down. who is right now your draft crush for this week, a guy you saw a video of and you just can't get enough of him, moved him up your board, and you're praying that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to draft him on April 28th?
Yeah, this is a guy who I fell in love with middle of the year. Obviously watching a lot of SEC football. My sister goes to Alabama, but Treylon Burks at Arkansas. I absolutely love this kid. Big frame, 6'4", 220, insane catch radius, has the athletic ability like DK Metcalf. I cannot get enough of Treylon Burks. I have the number 1 pick in my Dynasty Fantasy Football League, and guess who's going to my team? Treylon Burks. I love this guy. If he goes to the right team, he's coming to me as well. I think he had a great year at that quarterback, KJ Jefferson. I know KJ is gonna miss him going on to the next level, but I cannot get enough of Treylon Burks.
So I totally agree. Love Treylon Burks as a prospect. He's one of my top receivers. I will say that. That's for sure. But I do have a question for you based off what you just said. Treylon Burks, let's just hypothetical, gets drafted to the Dallas Cowboys. Are you still picking him at number 1?
No, that's my rules. No Washington, no New York Giants, that is, and no Dallas Cowboys. So if he does go to the Dallas Cowboys, unfortunately, he will not be on my team. So I'm praying he doesn't go to a rival because I really want him, and I know he's going to be so good. You just have a feeling that guy's going to be really good when you go see your rival team. And you just see him light him up, and you're like, man, I wish I had him on my team, but I can't because that's my rule.
I got to respect that, though. Got to respect taking the approach. You can't root against your team. So that was always my approach as well, but I had to ask the question. My draft crush, and this guy, this is our first episode covering the draft. So this guy's actually not my crush of the week. He's been my crush for like the last 2 months breaking down video. Is Cameron Thomas, the defensive end from San Diego State University. Do yourself a favor, turn on the tape of this guy. YouTube his videos. It's not as much game tape as other players, but the tapes that you do turn on, he lives in the backfield. Okay. He's 6'5", 260 pounds. He can play inside on the line or outside on the line. He does great work with his hands and his hand placement. That's what allows him to get in the backfield, not only on pass rush plays, but to meet running backs a yard in the backfield. And he's got a motor that just does not stop. Really, really hard-working kid, never gives up on a play. And I just think the technique that he has and the size that he has is going to translate so well to the NFL.
Yeah, I like it a lot. Yeah, definitely. I can definitely see it. I definitely think that guy is definitely a day 2 pick. And also, hey, love the San Diego State Aztecs.
All right. Well, that is all that we have for tonight. I hope you enjoyed listening to us tonight. Next week, we will hopefully have our producer, Andrew Kent, back with us, and we will look forward to breaking down the draft a little bit more. So thank you for joining us tonight on the Green Room podcast, and we will talk to you all next week.